Hi everyone! Thanks so much for clicking on my talk, Blank Page Panic and Creating Confidence with Test-Driven Development. So what I'm going to discuss in this talk is the combination of pseudocode, test-driven development, and the RSpec testing language, and how those three help me get over that initial panic when picking up a new story. So a little introduction to me. My name's Elayne Juten. I'm an early career developer from Madison, Wisconsin. So I've been developing professionally for about 2 years, and I'm a software engineer at Getty Images here in Madison. And I have two adorable cats, Henry and Otto. So blank page panic, what is it? It's in the title. But I kind of made up this phrase. And for me, it's when I pick up a new story, I read it through, and I'm feeling pretty good. I understand what needs to be done. So then I open up a new file and I stare at the cursor blinking and I start to sweat a little bit. I look around at my coworkers and wonder if they know that I don't know what I'm doing. And, I think, okay, I just need to get some text on this page, get some code out there. And I have nothing. I don't know what I'm doing. I start to spiral into negative thoughts, self-doubt. How did I even get this job? I'm getting paid for this. I shouldn't be. And I never seem to make progress when I get into these headspaces. And so blank page panic to me is the programming equivalent of writer's block. And I found this quote from Gene Fowler, who's an American journalist, author, dramatist from the 1930s that really spoke to me. He says, "Writing is easy. All you do is stare at a blank sheet of paper until drops of blood form on your forehead." It's a little morbid, but I agree with this quote a lot. So some underlying causes of blank page panic, might be fear, perfection, self-criticism, and external pressure. Personally, for me, it's the trifecta of fear, perfection, and self-criticism. I think all three kind of coalesce on my anxiety, and that's when I get into the negative headspace, and I end up making less progress than if I had just started small. So some possible ways to help get over this panic feeling is, again, similar to getting over a writer's block. The first one would be exercise. It's a little weird of a time right now, but if you can safely walk around the block, you can do so. You can walk around your house or apartment. Getting up and getting away from the screen is a great way to kind of reset your mind. Take a couple minutes, cool off, especially if you're like me and you're in that negative headspace, and then start fresh. Come at it with a new sense of tackling a new problem. And that might help. That might help you get through that block. Switching tasks. If you have a peer review that you could do, or if you have that email to that client that you've been meaning to do, it'll only take a couple of minutes. Get those easy wins out of the way. That will build up the confidence. Again, getting away from that initial problem and then coming back to it with a fresh set of eyes can always help. And it's kind of similar with exercise as a change of scenery. Again, it's a little weird time right now. Not everyone has 30 desks at their home. But if you're at a desk, maybe move to a kitchen table or a couch if you feel comfortable doing so. Getting that change of scenery can, again, be a good way to get a fresh set of eyes on a situation. It can take you out of that negative funk. I know just kind of walking away from my computer, even if it's closing it to move to a different spot, always helps me come back at it with a fresh set of eyes. Setting everything to do not disturb, closing your email, closing Slack, even making a calendar reminder on your personal or work calendar, just saying, hey, you know what, from 1 to 3 p.m., I can't be reached. That email can wait. I can email you back after I'm done with kind of my head down time, but getting rid of those distractions might be able to help you get over that panic feeling that you feel at first. And then the one for me that I've really stuck with and has really helped me and kind of is the catalyst of this talk is progress, not perfection. I am definitely a perfectionist. And so reminding myself that, any step, no matter how small, is still a step towards that finish line. And so remembering that, perfection almost always for me, if I'm going to try to make something perfect, I'm never going to turn it in. I'm never going to commit that code because it's never going to be perfect in my eyes. So just remembering it's about the progress that you're making. And that kind of leads into test-driven development. So for me, test-driven development is a process of writing tests first and then following the error messages that those tests produce and filling it in with the least amount of actual code we can to get the test to pass. So for me, test-driven development is a perfect progress, not perfection model. Starting out with those tests help kind of set me up on a path for success. So we'll come back to test-driven development, but that is the main thing. So when I am in that panicked mode, I kind of make a decision and say, okay, let's do some test-driven development. So the first thing that I will go to is pseudocode. So I've decided I'm going to do test-driven development, and so I kind of want to get my head around the situation. So pseudocode is high-level descriptions of a product or a process, and they're for your eyes only, so they're going to be in comments in the individual files that you set up. So let's set the scene. Let's create an example for us. So Creature Comforts needs a new feature. So a local humane society has an application called Creature Comforts that they use to track all the animals from the day they come in through their adoption and going to their forever home. Part of this application is a daily task list that is generated for all of the volunteers. They can see which animals need water, maybe they need another walk or more playtime or getting a kennel cleaned, and this is updated throughout the day. So the local humane society wants to add a feature that allows for food to be calculated and added to that daily list. So they'll see like water needs a walk and also needs 2 scoops of dog food. So the story card that we receive is this. As an adoption center employee, I want to have the daily amount of food calculated for an animal based on the animal type, which in our case is dogs and cats, and weight. And this will be added to their daily routine list. So doing an emotional check-in, I'm feeling pretty good. Reading through that story card, it kind of all seems to make sense to me. They just want to generate the amount of food per animal. So I'm feeling good. I'm going to open up that file. And the panic starts to set in again. So again, we're going to go through test-driven development and get that pseudocode set up. So first, again, we're going to get the pseudocode set up. I'm just going to create a pseudocode.rb file. So I'm doing this all in Ruby. You can do it in any language you want, but obviously for this example, we're just going to go through Ruby. And so I've created a file. I've done something. I've already made that step to continue on and to get to that finish line. So the first thing I'm going to do is what I like to call a pseudocode dump. It might just be copying and pasting that story card into the file within comments, but for me what I tend to do is read through the story card and then kind of put it in my own words. So what I have here is within the daily routine, we need to calculate food based on the animal type and weight. 10 pounds is the weight threshold for both dogs and cats. So I read through the story card, realized I didn't have all the information I needed, asked around and found that 10 pounds is going to be the weight threshold that we need. But luckily it's for both dogs and cats, so that makes our lives a little simpler. So what I have written up here is what I see the actual story card as, and I'm starting to kind of get more technical. So within the daily routine, maybe we have a class that is daily routine. Maybe we need to create one. We need to calculate food. So there I'm kind of saying, hey, this might be a method, and we might have instances of animal type and animal weight that we'll need to actually use that method. So I'm just starting to get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of that story. So then I'm going to write some more pseudocode. I really like pseudocode, and you'll see that throughout this talk. I'm going to write some more focused pseudocode. So that pseudocode, the previous pseudocode was more general and based off of the story card, and this one is going to be more specific for what I want to do right now. So I'm stripping down the pseudocode to just dogs to make things easier to swallow for me. Making those smaller goals for myself makes the story seem less daunting, and I can really get to that end goal quicker and with more mental clarity and less negativity than I would have if I just tried to take the whole story card and do it all at once. So for this focus pseudocode, I have create a method for calculating food in the daily routine file. Cool. So I have it more specific here. I need to create a method for calculating food, and it'll live in the daily routine file. I'm going to start with dogs. I'm going to start with dogs over 10 pounds, and then once all those tests are passing, I'm going to add the dogs under 10 pounds. So again, I'm just taking small little bites out of the story, and we'll see as we go through this, my process and the actual coding will speed up. So as I take these small bits, I'm learning as I go, and it'll just be easier in the end. So then I'm going to write some more pseudocode. I'm going to write some structured pseudocode. So this is the more technical end of things. So within the routine class, I put a question mark because I'm not sure yet. We'll find out. So we're going to do dogs only right now, and we'll have the calculate food method, and we're going to need an animal type and an animal weight in order to calculate how much food we're going to need. And then I also put a little note to myself, over 10-pound animals are going to get 2 scoops, under 10-pound animals are going to get 1 scoop. So looking at this, I create another question for the Humane Society. Do we need to specify if it's dogs or cats, or can we just say 2 scoops of food? And they request that we specify the animal. So we are going to need to go through dogs and cats. Over 10-pound dogs get 2 scoops of dog food. Under 10-pound cats get 1 scoop of cat food. So we need to be specific on that. So an emotional check-in. I'm feeling okay. I have something in the files. Yes, it's comments that only I myself am going to read, but it's a start. I have a little bit of a mental checklist of what I need to get doing. And so that's when RSpec comes in. So RSpec is a testing language written in Ruby for Ruby testing. It's designed with test-driven development in mind, and there are several blocks that we can use to set up our code, and it's going to end up looking a lot like a conversation, and it's going to be a really nice sentence structure. So it's easy to keep track of where we are within the tests, what tests we're actually running, and what our output needs to be. So with the blocks in mind, we're going to go through those. So first we have the describe blocks. Describe blocks are used for a class or a method, i.e. like the RoutineCreator or the calculate food method that we're going to eventually write. And I like to think of RSpec tests as kind of an upside down triangle. So the describe blocks are going to be the widest part of that triangle. It's really general. RoutineCreator class can have so much within it. And same with the calculate food method. Yes, it is more specific in terms of calculating food, but it's still kind of a general descriptor of what we're going to be doing inside. So I'm going to set up the RoutineCreator spec file, and I'm going to describe RoutineCreator, and then I'm also going to add a let. So this is adding a new instance of the class in order for the test to have access to the methods and variables that we're going to be adding later on. So I know I'm going to need animal type and animal weight, so I'm going to add them into that let, newing up that RoutineCreator class and adding in those variables. And then also underneath, I'm going to describe the calculate food method. I know we're going to need that. That's part of the story card and part of my focus pseudocode that I wrote out. So I'm just going to set both of those describes. So the next thing we have is context blocks. So context blocks are describing the context for which the describe blocks are being used. So that's a little confusing. I like to think of, again, the upside down triangle. So we have our describe blocks, very general, the class or method, and then our context blocks are a little bit more specific. So in our case, under the describe of RoutineCreator and the describe of the calculate food method, so when the animal type is a dog, that's our context. So under the calculate food, we need to make sure this animal type is a dog. And then within that dog, we need to make sure that the weight threshold is being met. So we're having two contexts when the animal type is a dog, and then underneath that context of the animal type, we have the animal weight check. So and weighs over 10 pounds. So if we look at this all together, it's sort of starting to look like a sentence. So we have the calculate food method, and when the animal type is a dog and weighs over 10 pounds, we expect it to do something. This is where it blocks come in. So it blocks are laying out the specification for the contexts. And it's our test cases. It's laying it out. This is where we're going to put code to check if our tests pass or fail. So again, with the upside down triangle model, we have the widest part being our describes, again, the methods or the class. And then we have the context that adds a little bit more detail. And then our it blocks are the point of the triangle. It's saying this is what we're going to see. So in our case, we have it returns the proper amount of food. Pretty simple wording. And again, if we look at everything all in one, we can kind of see that conversation happening. So the calculate food method, when animal type is a dog and it weighs over 10 pounds, it returns the proper amount of food. So we're going to run the test. I think we have a pretty good skeleton set up with the describe, the context, and the its. We're just going to run it and see where we're at. And our tests fail with the error message, uninitialized constant RoutineCreator. And we never required a RoutineCreator Ruby file with the actual code, so we kind of need to hook that up. So the next couple test failures are probably going to involve the RoutineCreator not fully being hooked up yet with test code and then the actual code file. So an emotional check-in, I'm feeling okay. I described what I think our issues are going to be in these next couple test runs, and I know what I need to do. So at the top of my spec file, I'm going to just require a RoutineCreator file. I know that eventually we're going to need that. And again, with test-driven development, we're writing as little code as possible in order for the tests to pass, in order to get a new error message. So now I'm going to run the test again. Okay, tests fail again, but it's a different error message. Cannot load such file RoutineCreator. Yeah, because I haven't created one. Perfect. I know what I need to do next. I'm going to create a RoutineCreator Ruby file, and I'm just creating a blank file. I'm not putting in anything in there. I just want to make sure that error message goes away and we get a new one. So I'm going to run the test again. And again, the tests fail with another message that's similar to the first one we got, uninitialized constant RoutineCreator. So I know I required that RoutineCreator in the tests, so I know that it needs to be in the actual Ruby file. So I go in and I create a class of RoutineCreator. I'm going to run the tests again, and again I get another failure. Seeing test failures is not awesome feeling, but with test-driven development, I know this is what I need. I'm getting new test failures every time and new error messages, so I know I'm making progress. And this one is saying we have the wrong number of arguments given. We've been given 2 in our test, but we only expected 0. And so looking back at our tests, we let that RoutineCreator, we newed up a new RoutineCreator class, and we passed in variables of animal type and animal weight. Okay, I'm feeling good. I know what I need to do. I just need to initialize those variables in my actual Ruby code. So I'm going in and I'm going to create an initialize method. I'm going to pass in animal type and animal weight, and I'm going to set those up. And I'm going to run the tests one more time. And the tests pass. I've made progress. The skeleton is set. I'm feeling good. The harder part of actually setting up a test is coming, but you know what? Getting that skeleton set up is huge progress. So now we're going to the expect. This is within the test file again, and this is stating what you'd expect the test to receive or equal. So in our case, we're returning the proper amount of food. And what is that proper amount of food? We're expecting the RoutineCreator.calculateFood method to equal 2 scoops of dog food. We're going to run the tests, and the tests are going to fail. But that's okay. We expected that. Undefined method calculate food. We never set up that method in our actual Ruby file. So I'm going in and setting up the calculate food method. And again, I'm going to run that test. And the tests fail again. They expect calculate food to equal 2 scoops of dog food, and we got nil, which makes sense. Here's a positive. We've made it through the test file. It's testing that expect. It's seeing that. So we've gotten through all the layers of our test file, and I'm feeling good that everything is running the way that it should. And I know what I need to do. I just need to add the minimum amount of code in order for that test to pass. So all I'm going to do is return 2 scoops of dog food. I'm going to run the test again, and they pass. And this is committable code, and I'm feeling great. I've made great progress that I can use for the other test cases coming up. So I have added the describe, I've set up the RoutineCreator class with the calculate food method, and I've checked if an animal type is a dog and weighs over 10 pounds, it's going to return the proper amount of food. What that returns is 2 scoops of dog food, and then in our actual Ruby code, I have my animal type and animal weight initialized, and the calculate food method is returning 2 scoops of dog food. I've got completed tests that are passing, and I'm past that blank page panic. I'm feeling way more confident, a lot less negative, and I feel like I can continue forward. So I'm going to go back to my pseudocode. We've done a ton. We've done a ton of that first chunk that I set out for myself. So all we have to do now is once the dog tests are passing for over 10 pounds, which they are, we're going to go ahead and add dogs under 10 pounds. So again, I'm just going to take a look at my structured pseudocode. Okay, so within the routine class, we're already set up there. Calculate food needs animal weight and animal type. Again, we're set up. We have access to those variables. So for over 10 pounds, we need 2 scoops of dog food. Got that. So now under 10 pounds, we're going to expect our test to return 1 scoop of dog food. So going to our tests, we're going to set it up just like we set up and weighs over 10 pounds, but we're going to have a context that says and weighs under 10 pounds. Again, we're going to set the animal weight to 8 pounds, just so for testing purposes, and we're going to create our it. It's the same as over 10 pounds. It's going to return the proper amount of food. Then we're going to add our expect. Okay, we expect the RoutineCreator calculate food method to equal 1 scoop of dog food. We're going to run the tests. I think they're going to fail because we haven't added anything into the actual Ruby file, and they do. We expected this error. We expected calculate food to equal 1 scoop of dog food when the dog is under 10 pounds, and we got 2 scoops of dog food. And that's because we just added this one return of 2 scoops of dog food. So of course it's always going to return 2 scoops. So we go back in and we just add an if else. So I am saying if animal weight is over or equal to 10 pounds, we're going to return 2 scoops of dog food. Otherwise, we're going to return 1 scoop of dog food. I'm not a huge fan of if else nesting, and we're probably going to see more of that within this example. But always know with test-driven development, it is about creating the minimum amount of work to get those tests to pass and get new error messages going. So I can always come back and refactor and change something how I want. But right now, this is the fastest way that I know to get these tests to potentially pass. So we're going to run the tests. And the tests pass. And again, we have committable code. We now have all of the dogs done. We have dogs over 10 pounds and under 10 pounds accounted for. We've got the right output in food that we can later on add to the routine list. Dogs are done. I'm feeling great. I am kind of seeing where I'm going to go. I know that my progress is going to speed up as well, because next I'm assuming is going to be cats, and it's going to be really similar to the dogs. So I'm going to take a look back at my story card, and we want to have the daily amount of food calculated for an animal based on animal type, dogs and cats, and weight. Okay, great. So I'm over halfway done with this story in my mind. So I'm going to go back to my focus pseudocode, and the focus pseudocode that I had before is completely finished. So I'm going to add some new pseudocode. Again, I can tell that my progress is going to speed up now, since a lot of what is left is similar to what we've done with the dogs. So first I want to refactor dogs to include the animal type, and then move on to cats. I'm going to start with the cats over 10 pounds, and then once passing, I'm going to add the cats under 10 pounds. This all sounds very similar to the dogs. So refactoring. I know I'll need to now start factoring in the animal type, since we're dealing with both dogs and cats. So I'm going to go in and refactor. So within the Ruby file, again, it's a lot of if-else nesting. So if the animal weight is over or equal to 10 pounds and the animal type is a dog, we're going to return 2 scoops of dog food. Or if the animal weight is under 10 pounds and the animal type is equal to dog, we're going to return 1 scoop of dog food. So looking at this, there's some repetition. So animal type equaling dog is the same among both of them. So I'm going to refactor some even more. And again, we're nesting even more in the if-else, and I can always refactor this later. I know there's simpler ways. Maybe pulling things out into more methods could be a way to go, but right now, I think this is a good starting point. We can plug our cat checks in here, and I think we can make some progress. So I feel good about this refactoring. We're going to run the test, make sure I didn't break anything in the refactor, and the test pass. So I'm going to commit that code again, and I've got the first chunk of our focus pseudocode taken care of. So we're going to move on to the cats. So we're going to start with cats over 10 pounds. Okay, this is going to be really similar to our dogs. So I'm adding a context of type cat. If the animal type is a cat and weighs over 10 pounds, it's going to return the proper amount of food, which we expect to be 2 scoops of cat food. I'm going to run the test. I'm going to expect that it fails because we didn't add anything to our Ruby file yet. We're going to let the error messages kind of guide us on what to add. And the tests fail. We expected the calculate food method to equal 2 scoops of cat food, but it got nil. So we're just going to add that information in. We're going to add the check of if the animal type is a cat and the animal weight is over or equal to 10 pounds, it's going to return 2 scoops of cat food. We're going to run that test one more time, and the test pass. Again, we can commit that code, feeling good. So now we're going to add in the cats under 10 pounds. So we add that context, weighs under 10 pounds. We set the animal weight to 8 pounds. And then we're going to return the proper amount of food, which is 1 scoop of cat food. We're going to run that test. Again, I'm expecting that the tests are going to fail. And they do. They expected 1 scoop of cat food and got nil. So we're going to go back into the Ruby file, add in that else return 1 scoop of cat food, again, as a little code as we can to make this test pass or get a new error message. We're going to run the tests, and the test pass again. And just like that, in a matter of minutes of work, our focus pseudocode, our second iteration is done. So I'm feeling great. I've completed most of this story. I have my RoutineCreator spec file looking pretty full. We're checking for animal type of dog and weighs over 10 pounds. It's going to return the proper amount of food. We're checking when animal type is cat and weighs over 10 pounds or under 10 pounds. It's going to return the proper amount of food. And then I have this Ruby file set up. And I have the confidence knowing that these tests are passing. I have some solid code. And I know now I can go in and refactor this code. Again, kind of what I explained earlier, I can break some of these out into different methods if I want and find ways to simplify what I have. And knowing that I have solid tests in the background, that I can make these changes and then feel confident running the tests, knowing that it's going to check for all of these variables. So that's the method that I use. I can then go on and add the output into the RoutineCreator routine list for the volunteers. But I'm feeling good. I'm clearly past that panic stage and that negativity stage, and my confidence is back. I feel great. So that's how I have found what has helped me to get over that panic. But I'm really interested if anything has worked for you, whether it is test-driven development or not. I would love to hear your feedback. My Twitter is @ElayneTalks, so feel free to tweet me, DM me, whatever. I would love to hear the things that you use to kind of build up that confidence, get over that initial block or panic around either starting a new feature or adding something into already existing code that's already set up really well. I feel like I get a little bit of imposter syndrome when looking at other people's code, when I see lines of code that I'm not even sure how that functions, and kind of thinking, oh, my code's going to be next to this code. So those are the steps that I take. If anything has worked well for you, I would love to hear it. And here is a reference slide of what I've used to kind of get this talk together. But most of it is personal experience and diving a little bit into the psychology of writer's block and that panic feeling and ways to get over it. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you're staying safe and healthy. Have a good day.